Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The regular meeting of the Grosse Township Planning Commission will come to order. Would you all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hi, Brian. Let's see. Well, with Brian's presence, we now have a quorum. So we will proceed as shown on the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
Motion to approve?
Motion from Kyle, support. Support from Jim. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is approved as submitted. We have the next item, which is the minutes back from October 3 of 2022. Are there any comments on those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
Support.
We have a motion from Brian. We have support from
Support.
Kyle. All in favor? I'll call a question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Brittany, I don't know if this was you or this was Lori, but
A little bit of both.
as usual, good job. You gals take good care of us up here. Keep us out of trouble. Okay, next item is public comment. I don't see any faces in the crowd, so we will proceed from there to the next item, which is the Grosse Redevelopment Ready Community Baseline Evaluation. We are fortunate tonight to have a guest from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, Stephani Pena. She's a planner. We also have Ross Quirrell, our Community Development Manager. Between the two of them, they're going to give us an update on the status of this program that was initiated probably now about 6 months ago, I think, give or take.
Yeah, I think I came back here, came up in front of you all 6 months ago to speak about the Redevelopment Ready Community program. We've made some progress so far. Stephanie's been a huge help. I know she came along shortly after we started the program, and things have been going pretty well. So she's here to just kind of give an update of where we are today and sort of a little bit more background on the program in general. So,
Well, thank you. Stephanie, welcome to the Grosse Planning Commission. We're glad you're here. Would you like to lead us through a presentation? Yeah, there should be, we have a microphone issue here.
I fixed it. I just didn't push the button that said push. So thank you. And thank you for the introduction, Ross. I really appreciate your guys' invitation to come speak with you today. So like Ross said, my name is Stephani Pena. I'm a community planner at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation.
Stephanie, could I ask please to perhaps
Lean
speak
in.
a little closer to
Yes.
the microphone and maybe talk a little bit slower so that people in the television
yes.
audience can hear you clearly?
Sorry about that. Yes, thank you. I am really excited to be here. Like Ross mentioned, I'm going to be providing an overview on RRC, as well as just like a brief overview of where the township is standing, and then do a little bit of a dive into sort of the expectations of a master planning process for an RRC engaged community. I do hope that once we do get into things that you guys have lots of questions, and I'm really excited to hopefully try to expand more on the expectations of RRC and the benefits of being engaged in our toolkit. So taking a step back, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation has a series of various different strategic focus areas that helps MEDC disseminate resources and funding and other opportunities to Michigan communities. One of the major focus areas is developing attractive places. This is really looking at increasing the vibrancy of downtowns as well as commercial corridors in order to attract and retain talent and residents and potential businesses in our Michigan communities.
Stephanie, I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just my hearing. I'm not hearing very clearly. Brian, could we use the microphone?
We can
I want to make sure that the people in the television audience can clearly hear this. This is important.
It's probably me too. I do talk really quiet.
I can adjust this, if that helps.
Is it just me?
Does that help
It is?
at all?
Yeah, and just talk
Okay,
this
it's
close.
just me.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
okay.
guys.
Up or down, or you?
I don't know. I don't use mics. I hope this works.
Give it a try again.
Testing. Is this better? I can hear myself
Oh, yes.
louder
Hear
too.
it out here.
Okay.
That's much better now.
Okay. I do apologize. Oh, you can? Okay.
You're good.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right.
Perfect.
Perfect. No. So when we're looking at under the umbrella of developing attractive places, this is where the toolkit, the Redevelopment Readies programs exists. So RRC has been within MEDC for the past 10 years. So we are celebrating 10 years today. I'm sorry, not today, this year. But the intent behind this toolkit is to really help communities streamline their planning, zoning, and economic development efforts, all under the guise of trying to increase investment in the community, to help them realize their own redevelopment visions, so whatever that may be for that particular community. So in order to deploy the toolkit, we utilize a number of different best practices to help a community get to the point where they can then streamline their development processes and attract redevelopment efforts. So these best practices have been sort of pulled from national community and economic development best practices to really increase the vibrancy of our communities. So we're looking at supporting and encouraging horizontal and vertical mixed use, meaning that buildings don't just have one single use, that there's actually a multitude. We're looking at an increase of density, meaning we don't just want to see your typical sort of one-story small footprint of a building. We'd like to see something that is appropriate to the community character, but sort of increasing the density to maybe 2 or 3 stories. And then also trying to see an increase in sort of moderate density residential uses within the community. So looking towards trying to provide housing for people who don't want to live in a typical single family home. So we're talking about empty nesters, and we're also talking about young professionals or individuals that maybe don't want to maintain a home. So these are all different things that really come together and are the main intent behind the best practice toolkit. When we're looking at RRC, the toolkit, it's a culmination of 6 different best practices. And this framework that we employ is really a very, very flexible framework. And its intention is to really help a community sort of hone in on creating community-driven processes, to be more collaborative, to streamline your development processes, to ensure that they're predictable and equitable, and ultimately ensure that your plans are implementable in your community, that you're being proactive and taking advantage of different funding or development opportunities that may come. We saw this a couple years ago when ARPA dollars were being dispersed throughout the state of Michigan, and not everyone was ready to take advantage of them. We did see, though, however, a lot of our RSC communities who were actively involved in updating their master plans and creating capital improvements plans, that they were able to leverage those plans in order to take advantage of those different funding opportunities that came down the pipeline very, very, very quickly. So above all, I really hope to express that the RRC toolkit is very flexible. So when we talk about increasing density, whether it be in commercial or residential spaces, increasing density here on the island in the township is going to be vastly different than it would look like in Canton Township or it would look like in the city of Grand Rapids. We ultimately want to help you guys attain what your redevelopment vision is. So whether that be building up Macomb Street, increasing maybe residential options around that area, trying to implement green resiliency or green infrastructure elements around the township, that's what we want to be here to help support you guys get to that vision. As long as it's a community-driven process and you're able to get that input from a diverse number of stakeholders, we wholeheartedly want to support those processes. One last thing, and I know I've been on this slide for a while, but there's 2 things that I really like about the toolkit that I feel like have been really beneficial for municipalities, is that it innately embeds succession planning as well as evaluative methods into a variety of the township's processes and procedures. So a lot of the toolkit is going to ask you to document or to formalize different processes and procedures under the guise of being more transparent and being resource heavy and trying to ensure that there's resources available for people to understand the development process. And when you're including evaluative methods during your planning processes, you're basically ensuring that your plans aren't going to sit on a shelf and just sort of get dust on them. You're going to be looking at them hopefully on a yearly basis to try to track the implementation or report out on separate metrics. But I think what that makes it really, really helpful to employ the RRC toolkit, because then you're able to actually revisit things that maybe have been forgotten about, or really celebrate the areas which you guys have had successes on, which is something that we see communities not do a good job on, is celebrate their successes. So I really hope that that's something that can come across as well. So looking at where Grosse does stand, so like Ross mentioned, you all formally engaged in the process back in December 2022, and you engaged in the certified pathway, which there's 2 pathways to designation. Certified is sort of like the full Monty, whereas there's a smaller pathway that's more for smaller communities that have lesser capacity, referred to as the essentials pathway. But with the certified pathway, you're really taking a step forward, and you're, on one hand, really ensuring that the development process, specifically the development review process, is really streamlined. And then you're taking a step forward and trying to implement processes and procedures to ensure that you're proactively seeking out redevelopment efforts. So this is a pathway that has lots of benefits for engagement, as well as lots of benefits when you finally reach designation, that we will talk about on the next slide. But I'm excited to share that you guys are at 41% alignment, which after Ross was able to tackle a few items, that increased within just a couple of months. So that's really exciting to see that the township is moving forward. And there is some things that are still on deck, and with the master planning process coming up, I think that you'll be able to knock out a lot of the items coming up soon. But when we look at what are the benefits in engaging, I think first and foremost, being able to leverage the toolkit to enact community change in order to ensure that your development process is streamlined, that you're signaling to the sort of quote-unquote outside world that Grosse is ready for development, is one of the most important factors of our toolkit and of being engaged. You also get the benefits of being able to take advantage of myself as a community planner and the rest of our team of community planners. We're direct capacity builders for your community, and we really encourage community members, municipalities, to lean on us when you're considering planning processes or you're looking for resources. We often have a lot of information coming at us, so we're able to disseminate it based on what your community needs are. And we also have an allotment of technical assistance match funding. So this is a bucket of money that you're able to use to help you align with the best practices. I know Ross is in the process of requesting that your monies, which is about $40,000, be used for the master planning process, and that's something that we wholeheartedly support as a team. We also encourage communities to be creative with the monies and maybe try to sort of lean towards a more education-oriented process, or be more heavy in the public engagement process, or even looping in a downtown plan or an economic development strategy in that master plan, so your dollars can stretch a bit further and you can get more plan out of that singular plan. And lastly, I should mention that funding is for the life of your engagement. And once you reach designation, you get an allotment of additional monies for a 5-year period. So there's always really creative opportunities to take advantage of technical assistance match funding. And then lastly, once you guys reach designation, you'll be able to take advantage of the redevelopment services team, which is a group of real estate experts that come in, help you identify your priority redevelopment sites, and they come with their own sort of technical assistance dollars for pre-development expenditures. So helping you actually vision a project within your, in your case, Macomb Street area. So that really is an overview of the RRC toolkit itself. And I know I want to be cognizant of time. I'm a little over 12 minutes, but I did want to sort of dive in slightly into the expectations around the community pursuing a master plan process. So this does fall under the purview of RRC. Not everything that the community does is going to be sort of within our purview, but we do, our best practice one is around foundational plans. And I think it's just really important because you guys are getting to this point, and I'm sure you all are familiar, but we often have to remind communities that the master plan process isn't something that should be taken lightly. It's something that being able to take advantage of and be proactive about engaging as many residents as possible in as many creative ways as possible in order to really get a consensus around what is the redevelopment vision for Grosse Ile. What does the future look like? What do people want? What do they need to see in their community? Being able to fit that in the master plan is important because that's then what informs the eventual zoning, which, as you all know, is the law of the built environment around here, and ultimately help you guys realize the redevelopment vision that you all have. So with that being said, I did want to review just two best practice expectations. Best practice 1.1, it's specifically around your master plan. The reason I wanted to bring this up because I think sometimes there can be a misconception that the RRC toolkit is asking for, and it is a very, very scary process and asking for a lot. But ultimately, you'll notice that a lot of what we're asking for is just mirroring what the Michigan Planning Enabling Act asks of communities. So the MPEA asks for communities to, at minimum, review their master plan every 5 years, that it entails a community vision, that it describes land use, that it discusses your zoning plan and has goals, that it's actionable. So we very much also put that forth. I think the one big differentiation is that we ask that it actually be posted online. The second sort of smaller area that, depending on how you interpret the MPEA, we do ask for a bit of a built-out section around strategies for your priority redevelopment sites. So that is largely because the master plan informs your capital improvements plan, any other documents that you use. We want to make sure that you're able to identify these sites and maybe put forth the municipal vision for these areas. So in your case, Macomb Street or any other areas within the township that you want to make sure that there is a strong vision that if a developer were to come and purchase land, or if an existing property owner finally got the excitement to redevelop that parcel, that they would know and they would understand what the township's vision, long-term vision for that area would be. One thing that is kind of important to mention is the implementation section. So we do ask a little bit more of a built-out implementation section, and I can always share examples. But essentially, we just want to make sure that you guys have an implementation section that you're able to track sort of the progress of the master plan on a yearly basis. And then just the last best practice that I wanted to review, just because after you guys are you're just at the really way beginning of discussing the master plan process, but I understand that it's going to kick off soon, hopefully. It's important to understand that immediately thereafter, we hope that you guys are able, within the next budget cycle, and might be the following one, consider the development of a capital improvements plan. So this is another thing that we could always dive in further, and I could provide more explanation, but just for the consideration of time, I didn't want to go too deeply. But again, this is another best practice that is helping the community become in line with Michigan statutes. So this is, again, regulated by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, and we hope that we're able to provide you the support needed to create one after the master planning process is done. So I'd be happy to take questions.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground.
I know, and I hope I was not talking too fast.
No, this is good. You know, in reading the materials and looking at the presentation you gave, it reminded me of my days in chemical manufacturing, where it was very clear, in order to have a quality operation, you had to have defined processes. You had to have those processes in place and functional, and you had people behind them trained in order to execute it. And do what you say and say what you do is basically what it amounts to, and make it visible to anybody that you know, in the management team who needed to see what the processes and procedures actually were.
Yes.
And in many respects, this is very similar, except for the community. And so it is important, no question about it. Let's see, go around and see if there are any questions or comments. Kyle, how about we start with you?
Sure. I'm not necessarily any questions. I'm just grateful for you to be here, and mostly just wanted to say part of what is exciting, or I think will be useful for me on the board, as we're going through a budget process right now. So we have to approve a budget in 2 weeks, and I feel like I'm flying a little bit blind, honestly, on our budget because we don't have a capital improvements plan. There are certain parts of the township that do have capital improvements and planning, but they're not really all together, and it makes it hard for me to figure out what should be prioritized. So I'm excited that that's a part of this process, and I agree with you. I think it would be hopefully next budget cycle that we get to that. But yeah, the things that I think are a part of all this, as you say, they're part of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, but I think that they'll help us be better, moving forward. And so I don't know, I'm just excited about it, and yeah, I'm excited for you all to see this. This is what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
That really is a very interesting point, because we have different functions that operate, I think, probably more or less in silos. For example, the airport. The airport has their own master plan. They have their own capital improvement plan. They have their own income. They manage it, and of course through the board. But I mean, that is one subset. We have a recreation master plan. Which again is not. It's not integrated into the community master plan that the planning commission functions, but yet it is guiding the recreational activities on the island. How are those pulled in? How or are they pulled in? Or when we speak about master plan, are we speaking about the master plan as administered by the planning commission?
So, I mean, speaking with Brian and just kind of speaking with everyone, all the plans that we do have with the airport, with recreation, those would all be kind of brought in and considered throughout the master plan process for this new master plan update. So it would be literally grabbing all the resources that we have and implementing it into this new update. So.
Yeah, well, the master plan process that the planning commission is familiar with, addresses those things which are specifically driven, in that original chart, the community vision, the master plan, and from that master plan comes zoning, okay, which is then the driver for decisions that we make. Okay, we're pretty good at that. Okay, we're not pretty good at things at the airport, for example. All right, and I would hope that we wouldn't be put in a situation where we're judging what the airport commission is doing, as we don't have the skill set to do that. They're into that every day, and so are you simultaneously updating their master plan independent of us? You're not. So they stand alone.
Sorry, Chairman, if actually something that you may want to consider, and maybe will answer your question of how there's an interplay there, is that it's important, like Ross mentioned, to reference what other foundational plans have been made within the community within the past 5, 10, 20 years, because if not saying that this is happening, but if the airport is deciding to build a new hangar or to expand on the site, maybe you want to sort of think about there's a park on the other side of the airport. I'm not saying this is true, but maybe you want to think about collaborating efforts and trying to take that into account. So that's when the airport master plan would maybe become of importance. But at minimum, just referencing that this is another plan that exists in the community that residents and investors can take a look at if they wanted. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, and I think it does, because ultimately the coordinator for all of that is the township board. Okay, and you evaluate the pieces, whether it comes from the planning commission or it comes from the airport. And it's your job to make sure that they're, we're all integrated.
Yeah, definitely. And if I may, Ms. Pena, what I felt like you said too was, in the master planning process, we want to reach out to diverse stakeholders. So part of that is saying, hey, Airport Commission, Airport
Yes.
Focus folks, what do you think about this master plan? Does this fit with what you all are saying, recreation, et cetera? So that for me would be a part of the master plan process, and making sure that these are all integrated. And you're right, Mr. Schweikart, that is the Township's Board current job. And for the most part, they do interact with each other, but I feel like we can do better, I would say. And this is what I'm hoping we're able to do through some of this.
Well, clearly, we have a zoning overlay over the airport, and that basically drives the type of development and the location of development and all the standards for putting various things into that location. That the Airport Commission, they had a lot of input, in the first go around, and I'm sure that in this go around they'll have another bit of input. Okay. Jim?
You almost forgot me.
Never.
No, not much to add. I'm just looking forward to the process. So this will be great. It's been a while since we've dug into the master plan. So thank you.
Yeah, on that note, my ears perked up when I heard $40,000. Is there any idea, based on the progress that the township has made, when those funds might be available?
Yeah, so with all the progress that Ross has been making, and I do have to give kudos to Ross. I don't know if you guys have seen his latest creation of the business resource guide, but we have several communities out in Gratiot County, out in Macomb County that are using that as an example for how to advertise your local incentives in a very transparent manner. So that's really exciting. But with all of Ross's efforts, you guys are in what's quote unquote now good standing. So you have an adherence to the toolkit. Ross maintains regular communication, and he's made some progress with the toolkit. So ensuring that you guys continue making progress in the toolkit, you guys can submit for requesting those dollars when you're ready.
Yeah, well, there's a strong interest on the Planning Commission and on the Township Board to update our master plan. And, we've that's a complicated process, and involves a lot of money and definitely some additional resources. And the sooner we can get into it, the sooner we can do some of the things that you've outlined on the slide. So sooner would be better, as would more. Not that I'm getting greedy or anything, but
Well, to your point, Chairman, the Community Development Department has budgeted $50,000, an additional $50,000 for the master plan update. And like Kyle had mentioned, that will be either approved, or they're going through the budgeting process this upcoming month. So
now is that for this fiscal year?
yes.
Okay, very good. Well, I hope then we're also simultaneously beginning to look at the process of getting bids and that activity to get resources.
Yeah, sorry, if I may, that's a good point. So if, that's the amount that's in the budget that would be approved in 2 weeks. So if anyone has feedback on that, either here or on TV, like that's something I want to hear about too,
I guess I would suggest, based on the fact that the last master plan, how long did that take us? 18 months?
It was a while.
It was rather long. I would suggest that in the budgeting process, you take a look at what the estimated timeline would be, which Brian can probably fill you in on, because if you're assuming that $50,000 is going to get you 100% of a new master plan, you may not need to budget all that, because it'll carry over into the next year. So there needs to be a correlation between the money we expect to spend and the time that we've got in this fiscal year to spend it. So that's just a thought. Dan?
Didn't really have any questions, just a few comments. I liked transparency of the process. I like how documents are available online for anybody in the community who wants to review them and are interested in them. And also I wanted to say I'm looking forward to reviewing and updating the master plan here, hopefully in the short future.
Thank you. Brian, your thoughts, please.
As I said back in October, I'm excited for this process. I've gone through it within other communities before. I'm an urban planner, and so it's like I've seen this like redevelopment ready communities process like grow over like my entire employment. So it's like great to see it becoming statewide. I'm excited that my hometown is actually working on that, and again, for the same reasons that my other commissioners have talked about over here, related to transparency, but also the customization and having local context. So again, you're not coming in and saying the state says you should do this. It's like the state gives you options, and the locals actually figure out what makes the most sense for certain land uses in certain parts of the community. So I'm really excited about that, as well as the master plan update. Related to the master plan update, again, I'm hoping that we can get a real bicycle and pedestrian plan included as part of that. I've been trying to get the ear of the open space committee, again, to coordinate on that as well. So again, cross departments, as well as just transportation in general. I know we've got issues with bridges, we've got issues with roads. It'd be great to be able to meld all of that together along with our land use. I guess one question for anyone would be, are we looking at different scenarios? And so like if X happens, then you're going to do, Y and Z. But, if for some reason O happens, well, then, you do some different efforts. So for example, there's projections about the way that the population will be growing or lack of growing, and having more seniors, less youth, less people employed. What does that do to our local economy? What happens if McLeod Steel gets developed in a certain way? And so again, thinking about some of those what if situations, and so that way we can be better prepared and be proactive rather than reactionary.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Brian. So I think it's not in front of you here today, but Best Practice 5 is all about sort of that being proactive in regards to your economic development. And it asks communities to develop a comprehensive economic development strategy as well as a marketing plan. And I know Ross sort of alluded to having conversations around marketing plan, but you can definitely embed some scenario planning, but also being able to leverage that economic development strategy to understand, well, what does the market look like right now? What are the projections over the next 5 to 10 years? And then being proactive with your strategies along with your marketing efforts to really try to help drive, like, if our senior population is going to grow, do we also want to try to help attract our young professional population, sort of the 20 to 32-year-olds to come invest in our community? So how do we work with attracting both of those efforts to help drive home those economic development efforts? You could also, if you're interested, is embed those types of things within your master plan as well. Does increase the cost, but having a little bit of those strategies in there might be beneficial. And, oh, sorry.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
A question for Ross. I see we're at 41%. Okay, of the things that are out there where we're not yet in compliance, what are the 4 or 5 things that you're focused on? Right now, you can't do everything all at the same time. So what are your priorities?
Yeah, so getting with Brian to formalize our conceptual plan review. What does that process look like? And having it in a visual appealing way and putting that up on the website. It could be things, the marketing plan, for instance, that she alluded to. Let me see. Some of the things, zoning, which could be addressed in the master plan, like perhaps flexible housing uses, or let me see here, our internal review process too, which is also getting with Brian to kind of just define those processes. So those are a few things. And with our boards and commissions, having a recruitment process. Having orientations for our planning-related boards, like zoning, planning commission, and the township board. A training strategy, for instance. How do we maintain training within our boards to be up to par with the best practices of planning? So it's those types of things, and it's sort of it takes a lot of coordination among many different stakeholders to kind of think, well, how actually do we want to approach this? How do we want to when it comes to training, especially, how do we want that to look like? It takes a lot of consensus building. So that's sort of the process that I'm at right now with everyone, is just kind of putting the feelers out here and getting people and planting the seeds to get us thinking about these things so that we can cohesively figure out a way to figure it out together. So
I think you've got some challenges. Very good.
yeah.
Just to interject, Chairman, we do see some communities that put sort of like a work group together to help the RRC point of contact. So a collection of commissioners, ZBA members, or DDA members that take on a lot of what's under best practice to help the municipality sort of build that capacity. Because ultimately, we want this process to be done thoughtfully, and what you put in is what you're going to be able to get out from it. But if you're able to sort of support Ross and Brian and other team members, it'll get there faster. Getting you guys to $50,000 once you reach designation, and the redevelopment services team as well.
Great point.
Yes,
Teamwork is better.
totally.
Okay, anybody have any other comments or thoughts they'd like to share? Stephanie? You okay?
No, this is wonderful. Thank you again. I do want to clarify, and I think Brian did, just because I know this can be a challenging process. This is a rigorous process that, like Ross mentioned, you're taking a look in the mirror and really trying to update a lot of processes and procedures that have been held within the township for a long, long time. And I think there's going to be moments where there'll be hurdles and there'll be hard conversations. But I hope that it's really been expressed that we're not being prescriptive at all from the state. We're really trying to be flexible and meeting you where you're at. So I'm always here. You guys are always welcome to contact me if you have any questions. We always provide resources, ordinance examples, different funding opportunities that we come across. So definitely want to continue to build this relationship. And I'm actually really excited to see what happens in this master planning process, because this is a really beautiful community. So whatever your guys' vision is to continue to make it grow, there's a lot of great opportunity. And I hope together we can help get you guys to that point.
Well, I'll tell you what, I look forward to having you come back in about 6 months, and you can put this same graph up here, and it doesn't say 41, it says 81. How
Yes.
about that?
That would be wonderful.
Maybe we could arrange that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that takes us to the election of officers. Next item on the agenda. We do this every year. The election of officers is a process that's outlined in the zoning ordinance and in our planning commission bylaws. And specifically, section 24.3 says, the planning commission shall elect a chair, vice chair, and secretary. Terms of office shall be 1 year, beginning June 1st. And officers may not hold any other publicly elected office. So, the bylaws for the planning commission also state that it's by voice vote. So, we don't have to do anything particularly fancy. We can run through this thing kind of the way we usually do, talk about the chair first, the vice chair, and then secretary. I'll describe the jobs a little bit, and then we'll take nominations. Everybody okay with that? Okay. We'll start with the president. The duties of the president, or the chair, I should say, is facilitate meetings, set the agenda for the planning commission, participate in the zoning board of appeals, provide procedural guidance to the applicants in concept review meetings, and provide direction to the staff as necessary on planning issues. And that's the duties of the president. When I'm not around, the vice chair and secretary have those responsibilities. And collectively, we're also on the concept review committee, meeting with applicants, and we also are a part of the zoning modification, or zoning ordinance modification committee, so subcommittee. The secretary has other duties. Jim is the official signer for the Planning Commission for recording of the minutes. So those are the duties and the functions. Any questions on any of that? Then let's start with the president. I would entertain motion for president, chair of the committee.
Motion that you, Mr. Schweikart, are the chair of this committee.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there support?
Support?
Are there additional motions? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
I was going to ask for a little bit of discussion. How many years have you been doing this now, Mr. Schweikart?
See all this gray hair up here? I think that answers your question.
Well, I mostly want to ask, just as I feel honored to have made that motion. Sorry if I jumped in there to do that, but I'm grateful for your experience and excited to have your experience as we enter this master planning process.
Well,
so thanks for offering to do that and stepping into that role.
Thank you. I appreciate the thought from everybody. Let's go to vice chair now. And given the fact that Jay is not here, I'm going to nominate him for vice chair. So he can't say no. We have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Support from Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
And Jim, secretary. I have a motion for Jim.
Second?
Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good. Jim, you just re-upped.
There you go.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, we'll move on. We got a request. This comes every year. It comes from the clerk's office, where the clerk puts the calendar together for all of the meeting dates for the various committees and commissions. And they ask us to vote on the Planning Commission dates. The strategy for the Planning Commission is for ever, basically, the Planning Commission has allocated the first, third, and potentially fifth Mondays for meetings. There was a time when we needed that kind of intense meeting schedule. Now it's used basically to accommodate applicants so that we can schedule meetings consistent with, turning around applicants quickly. So having 3 potential meetings in a month gives us that flexibility to do a better job of responding to the applicant needs. So this is what's all laid out here, and it's a lot of dates, and that's how the process was set up and how it works. So, any questions on this? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve this list of dates for the clerk. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve these dates?
Is there support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Brian or Ross, would you get these to the right people? Thank you. Okay, that takes us to the next meeting date. Brian, you and I had a little discussion about this, about applicant coming forward. Yep. Could you summarize what's on the horizon and our potential date?
Sure. We have been working for quite a few months now with an interested party in what amounts to a dog daycare operation. Under your ordinance, it defaults to a kennel by definition and by use. That's how we have to treat it under your current ordinance. It is a special land use, and the applicant has been working, and as long as they've been working with us on zoning issues, they've been working with Commerce Park to identify a location. So they have jumped around a little bit, and I think they've settled on what is the best of the sites that they had looked at so far. So we do have a submittal for that use in, I don't know the address, but if you're driving down Grosse, it would be east of the tennis center on the south side of Grosse. It's a sort of a multi-hue brown brick building. So they're looking to open up in that particular location. So if you're out and about the next couple of weeks, want to give a quick drive-by through there, please do so. Be careful driving through there. It's not exactly a paved roadway through some of that, but and there's some other things. So watch out for the fire hydrant that looks like it's just right in the middle of the driveway. But anyway, I digress. So yes, we've been working with this group. We had a meeting. John was able to sit in, Ross and myself, as well as Janelle from Commerce Park, and Mr. Rathel was able to sit in as well. So we met with the applicant, went over kind of the expectation of what we were looking for, what we needed to see, and got some answers to some of the questions that we had. They did put materials together. They did submit maybe a week or so ago, and we are expecting to get that in front of you as soon as we can. That being said, we would like to target, rather than wait too long, because again, this has kind of been in the works for a while now. I've targeted selfishly April 3rd, which would be the first Monday in April. But just putting that out there for discussion of the 5 that we have here tonight. If that's something you guys are available for, then we can go ahead and move forward with that meeting date. If you're not, we can look at alternative dates.
How's your calendars look, guys?
I will not be here April 3rd. I have a trip that week. I'm sorry, but if I don't know, do I need to be here for that? Is it? You all
No, we'll
go
have
ahead
a
without me,
quorum, I'm
right?
sure.
As long as we can get a quorum.
You're going to see this at the board anyway. This is
Exactly. I don't have. For me, you don't hold on my account is what I'm trying to say. If
Yeah,
other folks can go there.
Yeah, we have some other folks we've got to communicate with in order to, we'll send out an email or whatever that everybody asking about availability, and you can either accept or decline based on.
Yeah, I guess, Mr. Chair, if it works for 4 of the 5, then I would feel pretty comfortable that out of the other 4, we're going to get a quorum without too much trouble. Perfect world, we want everybody there.
Jim, are you good?
Looks like it.
Looks like it? Yeah, I think you got your 4. Yeah, you both
good?
I'm good on the 3rd.
Okay,
everybody's good down here.
okay.
So, yeah, let's send out the email to the other board members and go from there.
Yeah, thank you. The real trick, guys, was, again, we don't want this to sit too long. It is a special land use, so we do have to do notification, however. So I wanted to make sure we got a date that worked, because I think next week that notice is going to have to go to the paper. So I want to make sure that we stay on top of that. And if we miss that deadline for the public hearing notice, then that just pushes the meeting off even farther, so.
And I'll defer to the planning commission, of course, but maybe I want to just make sure I get it on the board agenda. If it doesn't go through, I can strike it from the agenda, but I just want to make sure I get it through quickly in that way too.
Yeah, we're going to handle this. We're going to handle this, guys, as a special land use and site plan the same night. We'll hold the public hearing on the special land use, evaluate that, and then come back and look at the site plan. And then if the planning commission approves the site plan, it will be contingent upon the township board approval of the special land use. So that way, we can move this along expeditiously, but thoroughly.
Exactly.
And I will, if I could just add, Mr. Chair, too, I don't want to dive too deep into it tonight, but we got a couple minutes. I just want to make sure everybody understands, too. So because it is kind of a unique project in a unique location, anything on Commerce Park that is taking over an existing building, we're always looking to make some improvements, but we retain a lot of discretion to not have an applicant have to go overboard with what they're investing into a property that technically.
Okay. Brian, anything else out there that we need to alert the
At this
commission
point,
to?
anything else that we have, it would be kind of premature for me to speak to as to whether it might not be ready or whether it might be ready or not. I just know that we wanted to try to get that one moving forward. So
Yeah.
if we do have something else, we'll let you know. And obviously, if the timing works out, we'll put as much as we can on that agenda, assuming things are ready for your review.
Okay. Any other questions for Brian on this? All right, then that takes us to the next meeting date, which you've already agreed to, potentially is April 3rd, and we're ready to adjourn. A motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you very